James here, aka Zero Stars, aka The Beast. I'm here to talk more about Hokusai, which is a backend agnostic desktop application framework for writing GUIs, and it's written in Ruby. So let's just get into it. What we're going to do today, I want to demo some of the more interesting parts of the components in Hokusai. They're called blocks, and what they are, a block is just made up of like state, like some state. It's essentially an object. It has state, and it has a template, and it also has the ability to emit events, and there's also, it can listen for events. And I'll just get into it. There's some simple things that we can talk about. I'm going to bring in our demo project here, and we can start. Let's start by building a small counter component, and this should be a simple enough and easy thing to do. So we're going to start with counter.rb, and again we're going to require Hokusai, and I'm going to use the Raylib backend again. And then we're going to declare a counter class. So counter inherits from Hokusai block, and we get a template in there, right? And so the first thing we do for our template in HTML is define our template directive, and then we can start importing stuff. So the block is going to be made up of a few components. I'm just going to pull stuff in as needed. So we have this we have the V block like we talked about, and we know the default node is going to be a vertical block. But what we can do now is we can set like we can use rects, or we can just even use V block, and then we can have text in that. So we want to keep track of the count. So we'll say text content, which has a content prop, equals current count. All right, and that's going to keep track of our current count. And then we want to do, let's do like an H block down here, and then we'll have a button for increment and a button for decrement. And so we'll have we'll wrap these text increment and decrements in V blocks. And I just want to use those styles, as we could see in the last video, to define the props on these components, because they're going to be all static. So we'll say increment style, and then we'll have another V block with the text decrement style, and that's going to keep track of our style. So the way this layout is going to look is it's going to have a vertical block. The first half of that vertical block is going to contain our counts, and then the second half of that vertical block on the south end is going to have two horizontal blocks that contain they're basically going to be big buttons. And so let's create those styles. So we have the style temp class method, and then we can say we have this increment style, and we want to say content, and this these are all, the styles are all typed, the values in the styles are all typed, as mentioned in the last video. But one of the types is a string, and the string has double quotes around it. So we want to say increment, and we'll give it a size, like let's say 15. I'll give it a color, put that semicolon there, and then as we can use that RGB function to make it white. Okay, and then for the decrement style, we'll do something similar. Decrement style. Okay, we'll say content will be decrement, and size again will be 15, and the color will be RGB 255, 255, 255. All right, and then so for these though, they're gonna show up white on white, which is not super helpful. So let's make the V block takes a background function, or a background property, and we can declare those styles as well. We'll call it increment container and decrement container. And so now we'll have these two other styles, increment container, and the V block takes a background prop, which is the background color of the container. I will make this let's make this increment red. So we'll do 255 0 0, and then we'll make decrement container let's say blue. RGB 0 0 255. Okay, so now we have all this stuff here, and let's say we want to make the current count change color if the count's positive, and if it's negative, we will say it's something else. We'll say it's like something else, yeah. Current color. All right, that looks good to me. And then one last thing, I want to make the size of the text pretty big. So we'll say size equals, I don't know, let's say like 30. All right, so this is our template. We defined our template and our styles. Everything's kind of set up for the way we want it to be. Now comes the interesting part. We create an initialize method because it's a class. And then the class takes keyword arguments. We're not going to do anything with those keyword arguments. Usually they just contain like the node. So we could do like args node, and they contain some other things related to prop setting. But we don't need to worry about that right now. We're just going to pass them along with super. And then we want to declare our local state. So our local state is going to say count equals 0. And we can make even attribute accessor for count. We can actually make that current count. And this is kind of the cool part about the Ruby implementation of Hokusai, is that we can just use plain methods for interpolating this into the content tag prop. All right, so we got current count, and then we want to be able to say when someone clicks on one of these blocks that we want to increment or decrement, the count. So we'll say when someone clicks on the increment block, let's say increment, and the way it goes is the @ sign, and then the name of the event, and then equals and then inside the quotes is going to be the name of the method that it's going to call with the event. So in this case, we're hiding on a click component, so we're at a click handler that says increment, and it'll pass a click event. And there's documentation on the events, but feel free to look at the source for sort of the built-in events. And we also want to do one for decrement. All right. So we have a decrement and increment handlers, event handlers. And for these, when we increment, we want to say self current count is going to be plus equals 1, and then self current counts is going to be minus equals 1. All right. And so for each iteration of the event loop, what happens is when it'll process the click handlers through an update method on the block class or on the block, it will kind of the update will propagate events through the whole application, and then it'll the blocks can respond to those events, and then it will re-render the new state. So for this, we also need the current color. So we'll make a method called current color, and then we'll say current counts positive. If it's positive, it'll be, I'll say we want to pass it blue. Or maybe we should make it red to fit in with the increment, doesn't matter. And then if it's negative, we'll make it blue. Okay, so we have the current color, we have the current count, and then we have our styles, we have our click handlers, and we look pretty good to go as far as this counter application goes. Notice it's only 58 lines long with styles, so that's nice. Hokusai backends, Raylib backends, run, and we'll run our counter, and we can configure this. You don't have to, but you can. counter application. We'll see if it runs the first try. Maybe I'll give it a once over. Width equals 500. Config dot height equals 700. Let's make it a little like a rectangle. All right, it looks kind of good to me. I'm a big fan of debugging by running, so let's just go ahead and run this. We'll do rayload backend, and then we'll bundle exec demo counter. Let's see if it loads. Maybe it won't. Yep. VBlock. Oh, I forgot to declare our uses. So remember, we have to, whenever we declare a node in our template, we have to declare a uses macro or class method that maps those template nodes to actual blocks. In this case, we have Hokusai blocks VBlock. We have text component, which is Hokusai blocks text. And we have an H block, which is Hokusai blocks H block. All right, let's see if that works. So it's trying to clamp this, but it doesn't know. It's not converting the size of this method. So the colon on the property is making this interpolated as like a Ruby literal, and that should do it. Or maybe I'm doing this incorrectly. No implicit integer conversion of integer into string. So I'm imagining content equals current count, increment style. Oh, this is the thing. This is actually a really good point. So when we pass this text content current count, we need to make it 2s. And this might work. I think this will work because we're passing a number and we're passing, the text is expecting a string. So that works. Now if we notice, if we click on increment, we'll see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, etc. And then decrement will do the same thing. And the color changes depending on if the pod number is positive or negative, which is what we intended. Notice the size is the same. It looks like maybe it's a little bit bigger, but it doesn't look that much bigger, so let's beef it up a little bit. Let's make it to maybe like 100. Let's see if that is working. Yeah, that's nice. Okay, cool. All right, so yeah, this is just a basic like kind of introduction to reactivity within the Hokusai project. As you can see, it's pretty simple and it's pretty fast, I think, efficient to write app this way. It gets rid of a lot of the stuff for you, but we're gonna do one more thing in this video, which is a custom event. In order to do that, I need a new block. So we'll have class custom, and I'm kind of winging it here, so bear with me. And then let's say we have a template on it. And it's not going to do much. Maybe it'll have a template that just displays some text. And in the text, it'll have the content. Click me. Something like that. I don't know. Click to reset. How about that? To reset. All right. And then when we click it, we'll call a reset handler. And actually, we'll omit this reset event. Reset. And so we have this text method. Now, remember we need to declare the uses to map the text to a Hokusai blocks text. And then for the render, we don't need to do anything. That's pretty simple. That's all we really need to do for this. We have content and text. It'll be just like, yeah, it'll be pretty straightforward. So let's go ahead and use that in our application. Custom. And then let's see here. Maybe we can do it like under the text. We'll have the custom component, and then oh uh, so we didn't emit any events. So we clicked. We forgot to add the click handler. So we need to find that emit resets, which takes an event, and then we'll go ahead and emit a reset event, and then we'll pass the event along with it. That's something that we can do in Hokusai. And so now when we have this custom component in our template, we can just listen for this reset event and then handle reset. Or we can make it reset count or whatever you wish. But when we declare this handle reset, we'll still receive that nice click event so that we know the details of the click. And then we'll say self current counts equals 0. Alright, so now you'll see the text takes up less space, or it'll be split. So now the template will split the counts and the custom component in half. We can mitigate this a little bit by making the height maybe like 50, and then that'll work. And yeah, that looks good to me. Let's try it again. So now we have this increments, we have the decrements, and then if we click this guy, it'll reset the count. Notice that when I hover over this, it says the text does this like cursor. We can change that with the cursor pointer style. That's kind of a globalized style for. I'm not sure. No, it's not global. Everything here is like custom to the component being used. There's few things that are global. So width, height, and Z. We'll get into Z in a little bit, but those are all props that are independent of the block, and the rest of the props are dependent on the block. So for this, if we want to have this text, we can say cursor. There's a bug in this content where it says we wanted to say click to reset, but the Lexer isn't handling the spaces. We can mitigate this by using a static style, or we can just like make the content have no spaces, or we can use a dynamic method to define the string. Anyway, so cursor pointer, we'll make this pointer cursor. The current text implementation, I do believe, has opinions about the way things should be done. I'm working on a new text implementation, a static stream wrapper. We'll see if this works. So when I hover over this now, it's a pointer. So when I increment on this button and decrement on this button, we can reset as a cursor. All right, well that's about it for this video. Thank you for listening, and I'll talk to you soon.